The following program contains views that are not those of WVTC, iNetworks Communications, their subsidiaries, affiliates, or financial supporters.
Winning victory through Christ, WVTC Allsip Chicago, an iNetworks communication station.
Welcome to Exposing the Narratives, where we examine, reveal, and discuss various topics, events, and of course, the narratives in the spirit of kingdom building through Jesus Christ. Hosted by three awesome men of God, Reverend Morris, aka Frankie D, Pastor Clarence W. Olloway III, pastor of Living Water MB Church, and Pastor Eric Taylor, aka Tae, pastor of Manifest Ministries. And now, join us in Exposing the Narrative.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. As you can see, our brother, Pastor Taylor, is traveling. We don't want to disappoint anybody. We want to be consistent with our format. So, fellas.
How's everybody doing today? Hey, Pastor Taylor, glad to see everybody today. I'm excited about today's show.
On the road again.
Yeah. We're waiting for another special guest to come in, but we want to pick up off of last week. We were discussing Christian cannabis, and we didn't get a chance to really get into it. We have some footage we want to share with you, but we also want to say thank you all for always tuning in, being interested in these topics. We saw that there was some questions that came in that we couldn't answer because we were on the go. Tae was at home. I was at the Congress of Christian Education's 76th year annual session. And then we also did the Chicago Baptist Institute's first panel discussion that came on previously before this show. And that's something we want to continue to do. We want to talk. We want to talk about issues. We want to talk about concerns. And we want to expose the narrative.
Yeah.
So, real quickly, the Triple X Church, Pastor Craig Gross, promotes Christian cannabis. He says weed makes it easier to worship. Pastor Craig Gross is a fan of weed. He's not quite a heavyweight user. He would say like Snoop Dogg or the legendary Willie Nelson, but he does confess to having developed a comfortable relationship with this psychotic active drug. He testifies that it takes him to a higher level of worship. These are his words, not mine. He went to Coachella and saw one of his favorite artists, and he said that he was amazed that the Christian Post, what they wrote about him, had never lifted his hands in a worship service ever, because I was raised Baptist. And this is what got me. This is why I'm bringing this guy up. He said he was raised Baptist. I've done that in my bathroom, worshiping with marijuana by myself. So let's take a quick peek, if we can, at Pastor Craig Gross and his wife. Just a short little clip.
And so the reason why I started this site doesn't make a whole lot of sense to anybody else but me.
And me.
Exactly. It's to start a conversation about something that has been beneficial in my life I would say, don't know if you want to say that, in your life
Yeah.
and other people's lives. And we are clearly aware that this has been the opposite effect on many people's lives that are in recovery or tried marijuana at a young age or abused it or did a number of other things or are just going, I don't know, it was just illegal and now it's legal and I'm scared. Exactly. Let's just start a conversation and we welcome it, all sides of it. But I would just ask you to, before you make a judgment or before you cast your vote that says agree or disagree, that you just maybe take a beat and think through some things. And those of you that are my friends or Jeanette's friends or family or partners in previous ministries, I think what you know about me for 20 years of running a nonprofit, that I've tried to do things that help people. This is not a ministry. This is separate from that. This is me and Jeanette and some friends working on a new project. And there's a few other new projects that we're doing that have nothing to do with porn. Because for me, it's the place that I'm at in my life where I want to talk about things that I'm for, not just against.
Yeah.
And I've never been for porn, but I've always been for sex. And we've started that conversation in the church. It's time for a new one. And we get that this one hopefully doesn't take 18 years like the previous one. But I get it's going to push up against some people, but I guess I would just hope that you give me some credit for some of the work that I've done previously. And if you know me, that you wouldn't be as quick to just go, oh, he's just controversial or doing this, or he's just a drug dealer now, or he's just, I'm just addicted. He's just leading people astray. He can't do that. This wasn't a crazy overnight decision. Been thinking about it since I had an experience in 2013 with it. And I felt like 2019 on 420, it was the time to put this out there. And we have a lot of great things that have happened, from interviews, from publication. And so if you...
All right. So that is Pastor Craig Gross and his wife. They have been in ministry for years. And he mentioned what he was talking about prior to marijuana. He was talking about sex and pornographic materials prior to his experience with marijuana or cannabis. He introduced the conversation for us. Christian cannabis. So, Pastor Taylor, can you hear me?
Yeah, really good. Yeah, you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. So, what are your opinions before we get to the questions and hear from some of our viewers?
Well, I think it's definitely an area where he's kind of, I won't say he's confused, but he wants his personal life, but something believers should look at. It's just another tool to me that the enemy is using against us. We're becoming where anything goes, it's okay. We're trying to justify wrong things. That's what he's doing now. And he's definitely going to lead some people astray, which we know God will hold him accountable for that. But definitely,
I didn't hear his message.
Which means his message?
You said he's going to lead some people astray.
You know what I mean? But because the fact that you're a pastor, if you're following you, and you're doing something, they continue to follow you, they're going to look at what you're doing and figure it's acceptable to do. So I think it goes back to the scripture in First John talked about in Peter. I think it was 2nd or 3rd Peter talked about be aware of these false prophets out here and different things like that. So we got to be aware of those things with those times. The difference now, we always had them there, but the difference now is it was word of mouth. Now, rather than word of mouth, it's to put your word out there. Anything you say on social media very quick and reach a vast amount of people. Before this word of mouth, people like that probably was out 20, 30 years ago. In fact, they were just only within a local community could hear about it. Now, whatever they come out with to attack the faith and lead people astray, it's just another tool to me of they say the.
Can I go on the other side of that?
Well, can I
go ahead.
Well, first off, what I caught more than anything else is that he never once sat here and said that he was led to by the Spirit or by God to sit here and do this. So right there and then, he out of order in the first place. And us as men and women of God, we must know that if we're going to do something, we should do it with the following of the Holy Spirit or by the guidance of God. Not one time did he say in that he said,
well, let's not. We didn't play the whole thing.
Well, I'm just saying off the first 2 minutes.
Okay.
God would never mention anything that you're doing right.
And he said this was not the church. This was not that. This was a choice.
Yes, a choice.
So
but even with our choices, it still God should be still in the beginning
everything.
So
everything.
So to me, he was already off order by not sitting there saying that in the first place. That should have been the first thing he said. Was, you know something, I was led to do this, and the Holy Spirit told me this, Holy Spirit told me that. So good evening, everybody. So that that's, but go ahead.
My thing is this. Okay. The state of Illinois, marijuana for recreational and medical use is legal. He's in California. It's legal.
Yeah.
Okay. When Pastor Taylor says it's a trick of the enemy, the devil, well, aren't we being tricked by our state? Because if record shows $445 million was raised in taxes for cannabis sales. My problem with that is, and I was hoping we're gonna have a guest on, is
he's trying to get in,
that they offered it to minorities, but no one seemed to get a foot in. Now, what Pastor Gross and his wife does with the access money that they have from Christian cannabis, the craziest thing is his church don't need no finances because they have it right there through their for-profit business to feed into their nonprofit, which was the church. But what got me, the first article I saw about they called it the Triple X Church because he was into pornography. Now he's into weed. So the crazy thing is he said that weed makes it easier to worship. Now listen to this. I'm gonna get these numbers out, and I got some questions. We all trust the polls by the Pew Research Research Center. It found that 62% of Americans, including 74% of millennials, support legalizing marijuana. 10 states and the Washington, D.C. have now legalized marijuana, cannabis, for recreational use for adults older than 21, while 33 other states have legalized medical marijuana. Michigan is the latest state to legalize it for recreational use, while Utah and Missouri votes to legalize marijuana in the next midterm election. So, if it's legal, Pastor Taylor, what's the problem?
Here's the thing. Just because something is legal doesn't mean it goes with God's laws. That's the case. Gay marriage is fine, but gay marriage is imposed by the church, by God. So that's legal. But we as followers of God and Jesus Christ, we don't believe in gay marriage because
that's almost
because something is legal.
Yeah,
if something is legal doesn't mean that we should do it.
Amen.
Okay.
That's just like sitting there saying that alcohol is legal.
Say it again now.
But you don't see no bar in the back of the church.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I would hate.
Listen. I think that we are getting to the point that we are going so far to the left or to the right instead of being in the center where God wants us to be at. And I just think that, like I said, a lot of us have gone too far.
Okay, and you're saying you mentioned alcohol, liquor. I just happen to be it was offered to me to go to a function with the Archdiocese of Chicago, big function. And the first thing I noticed at this huge function at a major hotel was the fact that there was an open bar. And that night, I met Cardinal Bernardine. And he had a glass of wine in his hand. And people around him was drinking beers and everything. Out of respect for who invited me and how she introduced me, I didn't drink that night, nor did my wife. But that doesn't mean
that you're not gonna have no drink, and I get that.
Exactly.
I'm not knocking people.
So you're sin is sin.
Yeah. But
if I drink and you telling me drinking is a sin, and smoking or eating edibles is a sin.
I never sat here and said that drinking is a sin. I didn't say that at all. I might have an occasional drink every blue moon.
Okay,
I'm not no big.
But we're talking about marijuana, and you're comparing the two.
But we're talking about the sale. It sells even in our charter. The sale of intoxicating drink. I'm sorry. Covenant.
Yeah, the sale or use of intoxicating drink as a beverage. It don't say that. Well, the new covenant mentions marijuana and stuff, but the old covenant, it just talks about the sale. And a quick note on that. Many years ago, a friend of mine asked me to invest in a restaurant, bar. And I went home to discuss it with my wife. And my wife said, well, you can't do that. And she brought up the covenant. I said, okay. And I said, that's why most of y'all, when we read it out loud on First Sunday, stumble over that part.
Yeah, sell in the use of it.
The use of intoxicating drinks as a beverage. That means when I sit down to dinner, that I drink beer. So my thing, there you gonna come on in. Hey, welcome. We're having our discussion about the sale of marijuana, cannabis, and how it's being introduced in the Christian church. Now, one of the other things I wanted to say, I've been to some churches, and it's happened at my church. People have come in reeking of marijuana.
Yep.
They didn't smoke it in the church, but they came in. And that's just like when the alcoholic comes in. And we have people in the church, operating in the church, that we are making their use taboo when it's legal. So if we're going to make marijuana the taboo of the church, then let's just be holy rollers and get rid of the sleeping around, the shacking up, and all of it.
Number one, I've never sat here and judged anybody as far as them smoking weed or drinking. That's not what I'm saying.
I'm trying to understand.
I'm sitting there saying he gave up his church.
He didn't give up his church. He didn't. He's still pastors. He's Pastor Craig Gross. People don't want to fellowship with him because he was the pornography pastor. Now he's the cannabis pastor because he owns a dispensary.
Well, yeah, that right there and then in itself tells you the type of man that God is. One, you triple X, yeah, that right there and then, yeah.
That's why I tell you, Franklin, do your research before we come on. But okay. Mr. Washington has joined us. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Mr. Washington,
we can hear you.
Camera. If you can't show your camera out, put it
Okay.
down a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
how's that? Okay.
No, we lost you. No visual.
Okay.
We got sound.
You got sound? But you said turn my
sound, no
camera off.
visual.
I thought you said turn my camera off.
No, not turn it off.
Adjust.
Adjust it so we can see your face and not more the ceiling.
Well, I got on a white beater, so I'll go put on a shirt and I'll come right back.
All right. So when he comes back, are there any questions that we're getting, Franklin, from anyone that's watching right now?
No, if you have any questions, go ahead and via Facebook, via website, go ahead and ask the questions, and we go ahead and try to comment or answer them as they go.
All right. Well, we are too afraid of the unknown. What if Christians were to begin understanding how something like cannabis could be used in beneficial ways to support our lives? It's a question. So, thank you for coming back. I hope you could hear me.
I can hear you.
So, what if Christians were to begin understanding how something like cannabis could be used in beneficial ways to support our lives? That's the question. There's no wrong or right answer to this. This is all a personal choice, just like it's your choice to serve the God you serve. But the reason I asked Mr. Washington on was because a young lady asked me a question. She said, what goes into all of this? And by you being a graduate of a HBU and with a biology degree, and you know something about the THC and the CBD, we want to ask somebody that's dealing with it in your point of view, your perspective about cannabis in our society.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard that we discussed the dispensary that this Christian pastor and his wife started, but here in the state of Illinois in which we live, it was $445 million collected in taxes. So what do we do?
So I mean, to answer the young lady's question, cannabis is a natural flower, and it's probably the most manipulated flower to increase its properties. One of the things that I heard you touch on earlier is whether or not is it suitable. Basically, is this suitable in a church environment? And one of the things I learned when I was I've been taking several courses, and I registered again today to take some additional courses on cannabis at Olive Harvey College, because they have several programs for cannabis. And one of the things I learned in the dispensary operations class and in my introduction to cannabis class is that for those people that are addicted to opioids, they can get more relief for their pain with cannabis, and it's less addictive than opioids. So that's a huge advantage to me, because what you can do now, they have a particular class of patients that have a history of opioid abuse, that now you can sign up and state that you have that you've been abusing opioids, but you're going to start using cannabis to get you off of the opioids, because the opioids, a lot of people have made a gateway to heroin. At least this way, they can relieve the pain, and because it's 7 times more active for the pain relief than the opioids. And a lot of basketball players and football players are doing the same. Because we started an interview with Megatron, Calvin Johnson, he's a grower in Michigan, and he was talking about the benefits for players that take a lot of abuse to their bodies, professional athletes, especially in like football, and the relief that they can get from cannabis and the recovery. And as a pain reliever.
Now let me say this. I'm sorry, Mr. Washington. Yeah, I'm gonna get to Faye's comment. Mr. Washington, Houston, Bernard Washington. He is my first cousin. I mentioned his background in biology and graduating from a HBCU and all that, but he's also interested in the process that our state is going through and the use of cannabis. Now, Faye said if it's good, but not for the youth. Well, the age of consent to go into a dispensary is the age of 21. So no, I'm not saying kids. I'm not saying use for kids. I'm not trying to open up a smoking section in my church, but it's what we need to understand. So no, we agree, Faye. So let me go to this one. If there are no more, let me go to the next one.
Let me say this much.
Go ahead.
If cannabis would help me with a sickness or something that I might be doing, yes, I'll be smoking up some cannabis.
Yeah, but see, everybody wants to talk about smoking. There's creams, there's salves, there drinks. This thing has taken $445 million. That was just the taxes they collected. And at 30%.
What does the tax have to do with the forms? Let's go over the forms again. That's, I think, it's more important. I know Corey Blunt, spent for the Bulls. He has a wine drink now. He has his cannabis. I think it's
fuse. They fuse it. Yeah. You breaking up. You breaking up. Eric, you breaking up.
Yeah, go.
You froze. Okay.
Go ahead, Dr. Houston.
So you were breaking up. So I understand that. But let me say this. A lot of our young people are smoking marijuana, and the reason they're smoking it, entertainment has made it popular, but there's another reason. They are self-medicating for some things that were already going on in their lives. As a youngster, I love smoking so much I tattooed it on my leg. And when people see me in shorts now, they think I'm a smoker. No, I quit smoking weed. But then when I look at the science behind it, going into they're formulating now using cannabis as an alternative to anesthesia. They're using it to put people to sleep for surgery for faster recovery. As Mr. Washington Bernard mentioned, that the athletes, they've been using it all this time and getting in trouble, paying the fines, but that's what gets them the quick recovery for their muscles, their body, their aches. So the question is, what if we were to entertain the idea that legalizing it is not the equivalent of lasciviousness, and neither we must be demonizing it and condemning every single thing that we don't quite understand? What if, rather than trading our feelings and our platitudes for less than, that we might begin to understand these people and this gift from the ground, from the earth, from which we come? I'm ready. I see you smiling. I can't hear you.
taking it all in.
Okay.
In fact, I was saying different forms that maybe medical use that can be good. But I know one thing, it's like a lot more research be done on it. And basically, you don't want nothing to alter your mind for the sake of just altering your mind. And that's the one thing that's hurt them. Let's just keep it a black community for so long. We already got our minds altered. This condition that we live in, we're put into slavery. The last thing we need is another form of alternate mind that hasn't been totally researched and studied and taken for what a purpose. We're already out on some island as far as our mind state anyway. So I just think we have to be really careful with this as people of color. When we get anything to alter our mind and make sure it could be some really.
You're breaking up again. And I understand what he's saying.
That's actually a great point.
Yeah, I understand what he's saying about people of color and altering our minds. But we're not talking about recreational use more so than we're talking about medical use.
Yeah, I hear you, and I agree on both ends. Number one, I don't like feeling high or loopy, and I've never been high a day in my life from smoking weed or nothing, but I have been high from taking medication, powerful medication that has me feeling loopy. Like what do you call that? Vicodins. Stuff like that, medication like that.
Those are the opioids that he was talking about.
And I don't like the feeling of that. Even when I used to maybe have a drink every now and then, I never like getting past a point of 1 or 2 drinks, because when you start getting drunk, I don't like the feeling of that, the after effects of it. So
too much of anything is not good for you.
I just don't like not being in control and not having all my right thoughts in order. And so that's where my thing would come in at, more so than anything else.
Okay. Bernard, Houston, the properties that you talked about, some of the uses and the blending, the cultivating, the growth process, the soil, and all those things that go into growing it.
Yes. So what's your question?
I'm just give us a description of some of the things that occur in the growth process before we get to the dispensary.
Okay. Well, I'm also a grower, and I'm a patient, and I'm a natural grower. I don't use anything to heighten the psychoactive effects of it. I grow in a organic soil, and we use, of course, we use man-made light, very strong light to increase the THC component of it, and I use it. I use it for PTSD, and I have used cannabis and hemp for interrupted sleep. I never had interrupted sleep until I went to Afghanistan, and now I can never stay asleep. I can never stay asleep more than 3 hours without having like a 2 or 3 hour break.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you, and so you're welcome. So that's that, and so I grow cannabis because I try not to buy it from a dispensary, but I do buy edibles for sleep, but I've switched to hemp edibles. But back to your question, Reverend Holloway, is what we try to do is use an organic soil. We have regulated seeds that we get from growers, and we grow it organically. We grow it organically, and we harvest it all in-house, Okay. And we're also learning how to grow if we're fortunate enough to get a craft grow license in the future.
I got a question for you. So how the stuff that you grow, how is it different from the stuff that you might buy in the distillery or even on the streets? I mean, how does it? I mean, how does it make the? I mean, how does it make you feel?
Well, for one thing, my experience has been that it doesn't. The way we cure it, we use a natural cure process. We're not trying to cure it very quickly, so we can get it to the market very fast. So we're very patient with it, and in our cure process, so it's a smoother smoke. You don't typically have the coughing and burning in your throat. That's one aspect of it. And then, as far as the psychoactive properties, it depends on what we're growing. The sativas make you a little drowsy, and the sativas make you a little up, and the indicas make you a little drowsy. Excuse me. So, and it's not one of those highs, if you will, where you don't know what's going on. So your second question, how does it compare to the dispensaries? I as far as performance, we're striving to be comparable to what you would typically see in a dispensary, and so we're always trying to compare it to dispensary grade or medical grade cannabis, because that's our objective, is to grow medical grade cannabis for patients ideally with PTSD, pain from cancer. That's really our focus, is those patient types. And so we're striving to get to a point where we can have a product or products and a product line for those patients with cancer, for those patients with PTSD, for those patients that have anxiety, for those patients that are paranoid. All those different patient types benefit from cannabis, and so more. What we strive to do is make sure. You mentioned what you buy on the street. What you buy on the street, you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. You don't know what you're buying. You just know you're getting some weed. You just know you're getting some weed. And if you trust your guy on the street, that he's not going to sell you something that he didn't put something in, or the guy in front of him didn't put something in. But there's nothing in ours. There's nothing in ours except for lighting and nutrients. That's all you get, the lighting and nutrients.
Well, Minister Danita, yeah, no, absolutely. We would definitely not tell nobody not to smoke weed, especially whatever conditions that they have. I'm not against it. It's just like I said, I've never been high before, so I will be afraid how I might respond to it. But if I tell you what, if I get enough pain, I promise you, if that's what my doctor prescribes to me, I would knock nobody. God bless you. I would knock nobody definitely for doing what they have to do in pain, because the pain I've been in, I don't like taking pills, but I'll take pills to make sure that that if I'm in pain, so if I can get something else that can help me without me being addicted to it, I'm definitely game for it.
That's a great point. I'd like to follow up on that point. I have interrupted sleep, as I mentioned to you before. And when I first came back from Afghanistan, I was taking Ambien, and sometimes I would sleepwalk. So I didn't like that, and it would knock me out, but I had to get up and go to work. So I would take it anyway. Then they gave me trazodone. And one time I fell down. I accidentally took 2 pills. I was supposed to take 1. And I fell down on the floor and had to crawl back into the bed. Now, whenever I take cannabis, I've never, ever been in that situation, either of those situations where I've been sleepwalking, or I've been in a situation where, I fell down and I had to crawl just so I can get back in bed, because I was drugged just that heavily.
Yeah.
Because I'm just taking 1 or 2 edibles. You could put some can of butter on some toast or a cookie or something, and just have a nice mellow sleep and sleep through the night. And
they got can of butter.
You don't feel high or anything. I'm sorry.
They got can of butter.
Yes, they got can of butter that you can put on pastries, or you can put it on toast. Again, you're talking about patients that that may be in pain that don't, because I'll be honest with you, I don't particularly like to smoke. So I like different delivery mechanisms, depending on how you can get it. So there are all kinds of ways to do it. You can make pastries, take a cookie before you go to bed, and eat a cookie and go to sleep. Yeah, so there are all different kinds of ways to do it. I'm not sitting here smoking a blunt before I go to bed.
No, and that's what I said earlier about how comedians, entertainers popularize smoking blunts and all that. No, I'm talking about the beneficial properties, and I wanted to make this observation. We were talking off air about Medea and how she said she smokes for her glaucoma. Well, it's proven that certain strands of marijuana do certain things. Inflammation, as Mr. Watch said, sleep, PTSD. And we all have suffered from PTSD if we just watch the news. The things that have gone on. The horrible accident that happened on 71st a week ago. For me to get that as a text message to my phone, it was just like, man, wow. I was just driving through there. But to our subject, growing up, I used marijuana. Not in high school. When I got to college, I experimented. I actually literally went out in a cow field and tipped over cow dung for the mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms. So I've tried a lot of different things. And thank God, when I finally got the help I needed and found out that I had some psychological issues, found out that we had psychological issues in our family. And my thing today in dealing with this subject is, what's the difference between me going to a dispensary, getting some butter, getting a pill, than a person who's been diagnosed and have to take lithium?
Well, I would say the person that's taking the lithium is at greater risk. Yeah, that person is taking some really powerful drugs. Pharmaceutical grade. Even though it's pharmaceutical grade, it's been proven that it's far more addictive than cannabis.
And let me say
probably knocks you out more. I would even.
Let me say this. Let me say this. And we're gonna have you back, because I should have gave your resume, your service to our country, and also that you were a top pharmaceutical sales rep for catastrophic disease, dealing with cancer, and the pills that you used to sell to extend someone's life for 6 years. So we're talking to somebody who knows. Like, I remember our cousin James had lung cancer, and through radiation and all those things, everything he ate tasted like paper. That's how he explained it to us. But at the time, we didn't know. But somebody gave him some marijuana, rolled him outside from the treatment center, let him smoke a little bit, and after chemo and all that, he started gaining weight, and it became part of his regimen to allow him to live longer. And this was before we even know about proton therapy and all that. So I think as informers, we need to investigate this more and just don't close the book on Pastor Gross and his wife and they Christian cannabis. That's me. I want to be open-minded about it. I'm not saying go get you some gummies and get high. I'm just saying, if medically used properly, anything that you do too much is bad for you. What they say?
I've been there.
I've been there. All right. And that's from my friend Faith.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think as far as Pastor Greg Gross, there need to be a lot more research done on him, not just from YouTube clips. We do a lot more research on him and what he's about before we go saying anywhere positive or negative.
I'm not
Let me
promoting Pastor.
finish. I'm saying he could be a total whack. We don't really know. So that's what I'll probably do for the next show, is try to find as much as I can about him, not just from one clip, and see before we endorse either way. Let's do a lot more research on him, more investigative. Let's say investigative reporting on him first before we.
I don't even. It's not even about him for me, Pastor Taylor. It's not about him. It's about me going into church and smelling weed and condemning it, and yet and still paying that musician to play.
You didn't say it was a musician. I thought it was like people that's coming business.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying in general.
Okay.
I'm just saying in general, because I'm upset about the numbers. Bottom line.
Are they making money off of it? That's what you said about?
No, they're not being fair agents in our state. They promised to give minorities an option to operate some of this stuff. And we have not. If anybody out there can tell me, where is there a black-owned dispensary in the state of Illinois? Where is there a black grower? I was up in Michigan not too long ago, and someone who was terminal cancer, they was delivering the weed to her house. Dude, Uber weed, drove up, gave it to her. I was there to pray for her. So between the prayers and the weed, she's still here.
Yeah. I mean, two separate things. You mentioned about people that's getting a contract or legally to be able to get a dispensary. That's one thing. Getting delivered to a house is another scenario. I guess you do a lot more research on it. But it's always been that way. Nothing new about America promising things for minorities on delivery. It's even with contracts with construction workers or contracts for do jobs. That's always been the case. We have to more so keep fighting for that. We can never get a fight on that.
But that goes beyond just dispensary. That goes beyond a lot of times whatever we're doing that to try to prevent a lot of us from doing businesses. Even for like our license, it took us 8 months to get our license in here. 8 months to get a business license in here. The hoops we had to jump through, all the issues that every time they came up looking for, 8 months to get a license. Everybody else got their license less than 30 days, but literally took 8 months to get a license in here. And so, it's something that we deal with, not just in dispensaries, but that's a whole entire another conversation in this.
Oh yeah, racism.
Just to
the corporate Jim Crow now.
Yeah. So that right there, we can definitely get into that conversation all day long.
I want to thank all our listeners, those with questions. I hope I've answered. You had Danita, Faye, Bobby. Addiction is a problem.
Yes, it is.
And now, when they are facing, what is that? It is a felony. Is that what she said?
No, she's saying it's that they're lacing it with fentanyl and calling.
Oh, that's the street. That's in the street. Yeah, I would never advise anybody to purchase any illegal. And this is the crazy thing. There are people still out there buying illegal drugs when you can go into a place where he just said that's medical grown, chemical free stuff and purchase, but you'll still rather go on the street corner and buy it and take that risk it being laced with fentanyl or something and you die. It's also about being safe and smart. Before I ask our guests for any closing thoughts, I don't think I I did this one, but I mentioned it in correlation to a couple of things. But this is the question, because we're talking about cannabis, the use of it. What if, this is just a what if cannabis proved to enhance mental clarity, distinguish anxiety, diminish anxiety, and lend itself toward physical healing and integrated wellness? Can anybody, this is a what if. What if cannabis enhanced mental clarity, diminish anxiety, and lean into and lend itself toward physical healing? We talked about the recovery time with the athletes, and I can tell you, this ain't a testimony. This is more of a confession. When I was in college, and I was a partaker in the smoke, I would have, if I studied when I was little two to whatever, when I got ready to take that test, if I wasn't high, I failed. That's just my little confession. So we're almost out of time. Mr. Washington, any final thoughts that you can share with us today?
Well, you mentioned mental clarity and cannabis lending itself to someone being able to actually function better. And I can think immediately brought to mind Ricky Williams, running back for the New Orleans Saints, and played Miami Dolphins. And he has some mental issues.
He's bipolar,
but he could not, and he got a lot of benefit from cannabis, but he couldn't smoke cannabis because he was in the NFL. And he said he has not been happier since he's been able to get, because he from the physical abuse that a running back takes, he just felt like it really helped him. So that's one advocate that you can think of outside of me. You can look at Ricky Williams.
There's a lawsuit against
Calvin Johnson. All the guys that took a lot of punishment for being really great athletes. A lot of them are big proponents of cannabis to heal their pain. A lot of them.
Let's be realistic. When you play football, I just didn't want to go through the beating anymore. Even through high school, I'm good. Trying to go to college and then going any farther than that, I'm just like, I had enough beating in high school. I can imagine being in college and professional football, going through the beatings that they get, and people don't care. Once they're done with you, because when I was in high school, I got easy grades because I was an athlete. But the minute I got hurt, I had to work twice as hard. So it just goes to let us know that, hey, listen, that sports and our livelihoods that we live on a daily basis is more important than any type of sport. And I love football, I love watching it, but just my body meant a whole lot more to me than playing football.
And once again, my friend, in your Al Bundy-ness, your high school football career, you didn't love it like I did. I'll say it again. You didn't love football like I loved it. I have seasonal disorder. That means in August, I start getting aggressive because I played football for so many years. And I actually have to make myself aware of it. Because my cousin, I go over his house, watch football game. He know I can get really, I want to get in the stream and fight for my team. But
somebody needs to fight for the Raiders.
Oh, okay, this show is over because the building is about to go up. I know he didn't say nothing about the Raiders up in here. Oh, the people at church, the people that think they saved, say, I'm about to lose my religion, I'm about to throw my butt. Man,
Well,
sorry, Bear fan.
You all have been listening to
don't cut it off now. You went there.
This is exposing the narrative, and you have been listening to. No, go ahead, Doc, and finish out the story. You know, because their season's already over before it got started. So go ahead and finish Dr. Houston before we go any farther.
He a Bear fan too.
I'm talking about the Raiders' season's already over before it even got started. I was talking about the Bears, but go ahead anyway.
Taylor, you're gonna have to come to the studio next week. You're gonna have to come to the studio next week. Somebody's gonna have to run this equipment. Yeah, because Franklin ain't going. I don't know. He ain't have to go personal. Now I got to come in here with my Raider stuff on next week.
Yeah. So he might need some chewable cannabis.
Doc, I don't need some of that cannabis.
Y'all ignorant. I'm glad we are in. Oh, and Bernard, Houston, Mr. Washington, you are on a, go ahead, say it, Dana, award-winning.
Yeah, award-winning, yeah.
The award-winning
Internet Radio Station of the Year.
Stellar
award-winning radio station, Internet Radio Station of the Year.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I'm trying to change subject because I'm sweating. Y'all just don't see it. I'm sweating right now because he talked about my Raiders. And commitment to excellence, my friend. Commitment to excellence.
That's exactly what Internet Radio Station WBCC is.
Oh, you don't want to go there. You hear this?
Maybe the Bears. I mean, maybe
you hear this? Do
you?
Anybody in the building hear what he just used for his radio station? A commitment to excellence.
Commitment to excellence. Because I know we were talking about the Raiders, so I know we have to be talking either Internet Radio Station of the Year or the Raiders.
I'm done.
But either way it goes, you all been listening to Exposing Narrative with WBTC Radio. I'm Frankie D.
I'm Pastor OLLOWAY, and I thank Houston, our guest, for enlightening us. We want to bring you back. Maybe you can give us some more information, because information is only as good as the people that use it. Our grandfather, Bernard, once told me, advice is only as good as the person that uses it. So thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure, and I'll gladly come back.
All right.
Do anything to help you guys, and especially my first cousin.
Amen.
All right.
Help me pick a new team. Love you guys.
Well, he was a Raiders fan a long time.
Hey, I'm about to get off right now. I'll talk to y'all later. Love y'all.
Views made on the preceding program are not those of WVTC Radio, iNetworks Communications, or their